He mocked me for not having a job. Then I fired him and his friends, who worked for my company. Please stay with me as I tell my story. And please, do not forget to support our channel by subscribing to our channel, liking our videos, and sharing your loved ones. Your support means the world to us. Now to our story. He laughed across the table, drink in hand, like he always did when he wanted everyone's attention on him. We were at our old friend Jason's birthday dinner, a casual get-together with familiar faces I hadn't seen in years. Everyone looked a little older, a little more tired, but he hadn't changed at all. Same smug grin, same loud voice, same habit of tearing others down to feel bigger. "You still not working?" he said loud enough for the whole table to hear. "Must be nice living off mommy and daddy, huh?" A few people chuckled nervously. I forced a smile. That familiar sting hit me in the chest, but it wasn't the same as before. I didn't feel embarrassed or small. Not anymore. I just nodded, pretending to let the comment slide. What he didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I owned the company that signed his paycheck. His and two of the friends sitting next to him, laughing along. I'd built my company from nothing. 3 years ago, I was broke, eating instant noodles in a one-bedroom apartment with a cracked ceiling and second-hand furniture. No one cared what I was doing back then. They all thought I'd failed. Maybe I had at first. But every time someone said I wasn't going to make it, it just added more fuel to the fire. Now, I had a staff of 40. We worked fully remote, with a solid 6-figure monthly revenue. I kept my identity hidden, even from most of the employees. I used an alias to keep everything professional and distant. No one on the team had ever seen my face on camera, not even once. So when I saw his name come through a recruiting agency 6 months ago, I couldn't believe it. He was just another applicant. His resume was okay, nothing special. He got hired through the agency's onboarding system and started working as a junior operations manager. It was almost poetic. All this time, he thought he had moved up in life, without knowing he was working. Sitting there, hearing him mock me in front of everyone, I couldn't help but smile inside. Not because it didn't hurt, because it no longer had power over me. He thought he was winning, but I was the one writing his future. And sooner or later, he was going to find out the truth. I just had to decide when to let him know. Back in high school, he was the golden boy. Everyone knew his name. He walked the halls like he owned them, captain of the soccer team, always surrounded by a crowd, cracking jokes, flashing that cocky smile. Teachers liked him. Girls liked him. Even people who didn't like him still wanted his approval. He had that kind of presence, the kind that made people lean in when he talked, even if all he was doing was putting someone else down. And I was the ghost, the quiet kid in the back of the class. I wore the same hoodie almost every day, kept my head down, ate lunch alone more times than I could count. I wasn't bullied outright, not physically, but I existed in this weird in-between space. Not seen, not important, easy to ignore. And when I was noticed, it was usually by him. He used to make snide remarks in front of people, just loud enough so everyone could hear. "Still coding your little video games in the library?" he'd say. Or, "When are you going to join the real world?" The kind of stuff that stuck in your head long after the bell rang. Graduation came. He strutted across the stage like it was the red carpet, accepted his diploma with a wink to the crowd. I walked across quietly, no applause except from my parents in the back row. A week later, he posted online about his first real job, a mid-level position at some marketing firm his uncle worked at. He made it sound like he earned it on his own, but everyone knew it was a hookup. As for me, I disappeared. No college parties, no exciting internships, no flashy updates. People assumed I'd failed. Honestly, I let them. I didn't post anything, didn't reach out. While they were busy showing off their curated lives online, I was rebuilding mine offline, alone, broke, and desperate to prove something to myself. I slept on couches, worked dead-end gigs, and spent every extra minute learning. Coding, marketing, finance, business strategy. I watched videos on YouTube until 3 a.m. and built apps no one used just to understand what not to do. It was trial by fire. I failed a dozen times before I got anything right. But slowly something shifted. An idea turned into a product. That product turned into a business. That business started growing. And while he was climbing someone else's corporate ladder, I was building my own tower from the ground up. He was the golden boy in high school. And me? I was the ghost. But ghosts have a way of showing up when you least expect them. While he was flaunting his 9-to-5 lifestyle online, pictures in office lounges, coffee cups with cheesy captions like "Monday grind never stops," and fake deep quotes about hustle, I was in a different kind of grind. The kind no one posts about. The kind where your fridge has nothing but expired condiments and a half-used pack of... The kind where rejection emails start to blur together, and you honestly begin to wonder if you're the punchline in someone else's joke. He looked successful, polished, comfortable. Every new post felt like a subtle reminder. Look at me now. I made it. Meanwhile, I was sleeping on an air mattress in a room barely big enough for my laptop and dreams. My bank account often dipped below double digits, and I got so used to being broke that I'd calculate whether I had enough gas to make it to a job interview and back. But the difference between us? He had a job. I had a mission. Every failure, every no, every awkward pitch that crashed and burned, it all taught me something. I learned what didn't work. I learned how to ask better questions, how to sell an idea, how to build from nothing. I didn't have investors. No rich parents. No mentor holding my hand. Just Google, stubbornness, and a quiet rage that burned hotter every time someone looked at me like I'd already lost. I'd start work at midnight, code until the sun came up, take a nap, then do it all over again. I'd post on Reddit, get feedback, rebuild. I freelanced small jobs to cover the bare minimum, just enough for food, Wi-Fi, and the dream. There were no launch parties, no flashy announcements, just long nights, quiet progress, and the occasional dopamine hit when something finally worked. And one day it clicked. I built a tool that solved a very specific problem for remote teams. I launched it quietly, shared it in a few forums, and waited. Within a week, I had my first paying customer, then 10, then 50. I reinvested every dollar back into the product, hired freelancers, built faster, improved. It wasn't overnight success. It was 3 years of invisible war against doubt, debt, and every voice that said I wasn't enough. He had LinkedIn updates. I had grit. He clocked in at 9 and out at 5. I didn't clock out at all. And while he was collecting praise for being average in a comfortable role, I was quietly building something real, something mine. The world didn't see it yet, but it was coming. And so was the moment I'd finally remind him who he laughed at. By the 3rd year, things had changed more than I ever imagined. My startup, the one I built from nothing in a tiny room eating ramen, had grown into a full company. We had over 40 employees, real contracts, real revenue, clients from across the US and even a few overseas. What started as a single tool had turned into a suite of products for remote teams. And we were thriving. We ran everything remotely. Slack, Zoom, Asana, the usual. It wasn't just about convenience. It was part of the plan. I kept things quiet. I never put my face out there. I used a fake name on official documents and accounts. My voice wasn't in meetings. I had a brilliant operations lead and project managers to handle daily communication. I stayed in the background, pulling the strings, watching the company grow like a proud parent behind the curtain. The anonymity wasn't an accident. It was armor. I didn't want recognition. I wanted results. I wanted to build something that could stand on its own without me needing to be the face of it. And deep down, a part of me still didn't want the people from my past to know just how far I'd come. Not yet. Then one day, something strange happened. I was going through the onboarding queue from a staffing agency we sometimes used when we needed extra help. They'd submitted a batch of resumes for review. I opened the folder like usual, scanned the list of names, and nearly dropped my coffee. There it was. His name. I stared at it for a full minute just to make sure I wasn't seeing things. Same name, same city, same smug little LinkedIn photo. He was applying for a junior operations role. The same guy who once mocked me for not having a job, now wanted one from my company. But it didn't stop there. Right underneath his name were 2 more familiar ones. 2 of his old high school buddies. They were tight back then, probably still were. They all applied together, maybe hoping to work on the same team. I couldn't believe it. They had no idea. No idea they were applying to the same loser they used to joke about. No idea they were walking right into my world, on my terms. It felt surreal, like life had handed me the perfect setup without me even trying. I didn't reject them. No, I approved all 3. Sometimes the best revenge starts quietly, so I let them in, let them settle, let them feel secure, because soon they'd realize the boss they never respected was the one writing their future. I kept everything hidden just like I planned. On Slack, I went by a different name, just an alias that looked like any other corporate account. Executive liaison, upper leadership, strategic oversight. All titles that meant something and nothing at the same time. It let me keep tabs on everything without ever drawing attention. I never turned my camera on, never joined calls unless it was absolutely necessary, and even then, only with audio. No one questioned it. Remote work made secrecy easy. To them, I was just someone above the manager level. Someone who approved budgets, signed off on strategy, and occasionally chimed in with a few comments. But never enough to give myself away. My middle manager handled all direct reports, including him and his 2 friends. She was sharp, no nonsense, and totally in the dark about who I really was. That was important. The fewer people who knew, the better. He came in acting like he owned the place. First week on the job, and he was already suggesting improvements to systems we'd spent years building. Classic golden boy energy, confident without depth. His friends weren't much better. They stayed quiet during team meetings but laughed too loud at his bad jokes and always backed him up in Slack threads. But the best part? Watching him complain. He had no idea I was reading every comment he made. Every time he whined about deadlines, criticized project timelines, or made passive-aggressive remarks about unclear leadership, I was right there, sipping my coffee, enjoying the irony. One time he even wrote, "If whoever's making these decisions actually talked to the ops team, we wouldn't be fixing the same issues over and over." Oh, I laughed. I laughed hard. This was the same guy who once told me I'd never succeed, that I needed to get real and stop wasting my time on pipe dreams. And now, he was unknowingly working for those very dreams that had come true. The more he acted up, the more I documented. Not to punish him yet, but to build a perfect record. A clean, airtight list of patterns. Missed deadlines, late reports, internal drama. Nothing major on its own. But together, it told a story. A very convenient one. He had no idea who he was dealing with. No idea that the person signing off on his performance reviews, salary adjustments, and project assignments was the same kid he humiliated back in high school. I didn't need to confront him. Not yet. I just needed to watch. And wait, because the real fun was just getting started. At first, he tried to play the role, polite, cooperative, eager to fit in. But that act didn't last long. By the second month, the cracks started to show. His arrogance, the same kind I remembered from high school, crept into the workplace like a slow leak. He began interrupting junior developers during meetings, talking over them like their ideas were beneath him. When someone made a good point, he'd rephrase it a few minutes later and present it as his own. If the team lead praised a solution, he found a way to slip into the credit, even if he hadn't touched the task. He had a talent for making himself look important while doing the bare minimum. It was impressive, in a way, like watching a magician perform the same trick, hoping no one noticed the wires. I noticed. Everyone else just thought he was a little strong-headed. That's what one of our project managers called him in a performance note. But I knew better. This was his pattern. He'd been rewarded for acting like this his whole life. And now, he thought the game hadn't changed. He even bragged in Slack once, not knowing I was in the channel, about how he coasted through interviews like nothing. Said our screening process was too easy. Just said the right buzzwords and smiled. His buddies laughed, adding things like "classic you," and "you always find the cheat code." I just sat there reading it, calm as ever. I didn't react, didn't message anyone, didn't even breathe differently. I documented everything. Screenshots, meeting logs, direct quotes, feedback from teammates he brushed off, anonymous notes from interns who felt talked down to buy him. It all went into a private folder labeled pending. I wasn't rushing. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about precision. You see, when someone like him thinks they're untouchable, they get sloppy. They underestimate the quiet ones. They forget that not every leader needs to shout to be powerful. That sometimes, the most dangerous person in the room is the one who's just listening. So I watched as he made his little power moves, thinking no one could see the pattern. I let him believe he was rising, that he had control, that he was secure. But in truth, every careless move was adding to the case I was building against him. And when the moment came, there would be no warning. Just silence. And then the fall. It happened on a random Wednesday afternoon during a casual team chat. The dev team had just pushed out a small update, and everyone was joking around, celebrating a smooth release. One of our newer female engineers, Sarah, made a clever joke about debugging being like therapy, but with more crying. It was funny. People reacted with laughing emojis. Lighthearted stuff. Then he replied, "Careful, Sarah. If you keep talking like that, we'll have to start calling you emotional. Or worse, management." He added a winking emoji. His two friends reacted with the laugh emoji, like it was the most hilarious thing in the world. Sarah didn't reply. The chat went quiet for a moment, then someone awkwardly changed the subject. HR flagged it within an hour. Sarah didn't even complain, someone else did. One of the dev leads screenshotted the conversation and sent it directly to our HR inbox. They brought it to me, concerned. Normally, we would follow protocol, verbal warning, documentation, a discussion about appropriate behavior. That's how it should have gone. But this wasn't just some minor mistake. This was him slipping back into who he really was. The same guy who used to make girls cry in high school and then laugh about it with his friends. The same guy who thought consequences were for other people. That he could get away with anything as long as he added a smile at the end. I stared at the chat log for a long time. I didn't feel angry. Not really. I felt done. That was the moment everything changed. Up until that point, I'd been patient, strategic, calm. I told myself it was all business. That I'd deal with him when the timing was right. That the best revenge was success. But seeing him joke like that again, like none of us mattered, flipped a switch in me. It stopped being about proving anything. It stopped being about numbers or leadership or performance review. This was no longer about business. This was personal. There would be no warnings, no second chances, no gentle HR emails telling him to be more mindful. I wasn't going to let him drag down the team, or worse, make anyone feel unsafe. He thought the past didn't matter anymore, that he was still untouchable, that the quiet ones never get the final word. He was wrong. I decided then and there. He was going to be out, and it was going to be me who delivered the message. I scheduled the Zoom call for Friday at 3 p.m. I titled it simply, Leadership Check-In Mandatory. No details, just enough to make them curious but not suspicious. I made sure all three of them were invited, him and his two friends. I also added our HR lead and my trusted operations manager to the call. No one knew what was coming, not even them. The meeting started like any other. They joined one by one, laughing, making small talk as if they were just checking another box before the weekend. As usual, I had my camera off, just a blank screen with my alias showing. I let them talk for a moment before I cleared my throat and said, "Thanks for joining, everyone. We'll keep this short." Then I clicked my camera on. Silence. He froze. His eyes narrowed like he was trying to figure out where he knew me from. Then it hit him. His face drained of color. I saw the moment recognition land, the disbelief, the panic trying to hide behind a fake smile. "Long time, huh?" I said, calm and steady. "I believe you once told me I'd never make it, that I should get real." He didn't speak. Neither did his friends. They just stared, completely off balance, like someone had pulled the floor out from under them. "Well," I continued, "turns out I did make it. Built this company from nothing. Gave you all a job. Paid you well. Watched you take credit for others' work, spread toxicity, and even disrespect your own teammates. But that's done now." I leaned in slightly, just enough to make sure every word landed. "You're fired. Effective immediately." He blinked, stunned, then finally spoke. "Wait, this is a joke, right? You're serious? You can't just—" "Oh, I can," I said, cutting him off. "And I am." I turned to his two friends. "You too, same story. You backed him, enabled him, and added no value to this team. This company doesn't need followers. We need builders. And you're not it." They didn't argue. One of them started to speak, then stopped himself. They knew it was over. There was nothing they could say that would fix it. I nodded to HR. "Please remove their access to all company systems immediately. Make sure their exit paperwork is sent by end of day." Then I looked back at him one last time. "Next time you laugh at someone trying to build something, make sure it's not the person writing your paycheck." And with that, I ended the call. The call started about an hour after the Zoom meeting ended. First, it was my work line, then my personal number. I didn't answer. Voicemail after voicemail poured in, each one more desperate than the last. He tried to sound calm at first, pretending to be confused. "Hey man, I think there's been a mistake. Can we talk?" But the more I ignored him, the more the mask slipped. By the third message, he wasn't calm anymore. "You think this makes you better than me?" He spat into the phone. "You think you're some kind of hero now?" I turned off notifications and put my phone on silent. Then came the messages, texts, Slack DMs, LinkedIn pings, even an email with the subject line, "Let's be adults about this." That one made me laugh. He sent a half-hearted apology too. Something about misunderstandings and bad timing, and how he was just joking. He didn't take responsibility. He never actually said sorry to Sarah. It was all about him, his reputation, his job, his humiliation. I archived it without reading past the first line. But what really sealed it was what he did next. He took it public. Over the next few days, I noticed vague, dramatic posts showing up on his social media. Stuff like, "Crazy how fast people will turn on you. Loyalty means nothing anymore. One mistake and suddenly you're out. Guess some people can't handle honesty. The system is broken. Cancel culture ruins good people." Classic deflection. No names, of course. But we both knew who he was talking about. His friends chimed in with comments like, "Stay strong, bro," and "Your real ones know the truth." The echo chamber was in full effect. But outside of his little circle, no one cared. No outrage, no sympathy, just silence. Because here's the thing about the internet. It doesn't care about your ego. It doesn't care how popular you were in high school or how many people you used to impress. It cares about stories. And if you mess with enough people, if you treat others like they're beneath you for long enough, eventually, the story catches up. It wasn't betrayal. It was accountability. And karma? Karma's patient, quiet, precise. It doesn't come with a warning. It just shows up one day, wearing the face of the person you once laughed at. And when it does, there's no post, no rant, no pity party that can save you. Only silence. And the weight of everything you thought you'd gotten away with. Now, my company is bigger than ever. We've grown past 40 employees, expanded into new markets, and partnered with clients I used to only dream about. What started as a single idea in a cramped apartment has become something real, something solid. We've got structure, momentum, A culture I'm proud of. And we're still growing. People ask me why I don't put my name out there more. Why I don't post flashy photos, go on podcasts, or brag online. The truth is, I don't need to. I don't seek validation. I let the numbers, the impact, and the team speak for themselves. Success doesn't need a spotlight, it just needs results. But every now and then, imposter syndrome creeps in. It happens late at night, after a tough day, when doubts start whispering. Are you really good enough? Did you just get lucky? That voice, the one that used to scream at me in the early days, still tries to sneak back in some time. And when it does, I remember his voice. You still not working? That question used to haunt me. Back then, I didn't have an answer. I was still figuring things out, still building quietly while people like him laughed loud and lived easy. I remember sitting alone after that dinner, replaying his words in my head like a broken record. But now I smile, because the truth is I was working, just not in the way he thought. I wasn't clocking in at someone else's job. I wasn't playing it safe. I was taking risks, failing, learning, and trying again. I was laying the foundation brick by brick while everyone else was just decorating their walls. I wasn't not working. I was becoming his boss. That line never gets old. It's not about revenge anymore. It's about reflection. It's about knowing where I came from and how far I've come. About understanding that the quiet path, the one without recognition, was still the right one. There's power in silence, in moving without needing to be seen, in building something real, even when no one believes in you, especially then. So I keep going, quiet, focused, grounded. And every time someone doubts me, every time the world feels too big again, I just remind myself of what I already proved. Not with noise, not with drama, but with action. I never needed to tell him I'd make it, because the day I fired him, that said everything.